Pine Tree State Restorations and the E.N. Welch clock repair. I hope everybody's doing good today. I want to talk about this clock real quick here. This is an E.N. Welch gravity clock, okay? And E.N. Welch clocks, originally founded 1840, 1850 by Elisha N. Welch, and then they joined together in 1864 with another clock company because Elisha was having trouble with employees and money and everything, so they joined together. But I'm thinking this clock here is an original E.N. Welch, which means it's probably an 1840, 1845 clock. And the reason why I say that is because the movement is very crude. This is the 30-hour clock. This would have been one of their cheaper clocks. There's an economy clock model. And quite a few things can go wrong with these. Besides the cables going up on the weights right here, they go all the way up. They come up to a top to a wooden pulley. I've seen these pulleys broken right here, and a lot of times the pulleys will get seized up on that pin. It's a metal pin, the metal pin rusts, and they'll seize right up, and that pulley's got to be free. Got to be really free. The clock motor is sitting in there loose, not even tight. Okay, we got to fix that. The problems that most of these have is right here. There's a little metal strip, and that breaks. Then, of course, that falls down, and then, of course, you got no pendulum, and it's not going to work. You have to replace that strip with a real thin piece of treated. This one here is one piece. It's got a brass rod and it's flattened out, and I believe that might even be brass. I'm not real sure. But you have to fix that. That has to be the same length, and it has to be flexible, spring steel, something really thin for that to move back and forth, because what happens is this rocks back and forth, as you can see. Okay. A lot of times that gets bent right here. People will leave the weight on, move the clock, and they'll bend that, and that screws that rocker right up. That rocker, you have to be able to move it to one side and the other side, and has to run that rocker equal amount. So you might have to bend that to adjust it, okay? This rod right here is so that you can release and reset the time on, like if you get your time mixed up. Let me wind it up a little bit here. This thing's so messed up right now. So you can set your time, and if you're off, you can push this. Try to get it lined up at the right appropriate time. Okay. The other thing that goes wrong with these clocks is they need oiled. They need cleaned. This one's pretty clean. I'm probably just going to give it a real light wash, and then I'm going to blow it all out gently. And then I will use some real thin synthetic oil or sewing machine oil, real thin oil. Something like, let's see here. 100% synthetic lubricant. This is made for clocks. It's real thin. Okay, you don't want to put any heavy oil in there. It just won't run. All right. So you got to make sure those wheels on the top are cleaned and rotating. And of course, the cable's got to be in there. Somebody's replaced these cables once before. I'll tell you that. And this gong, not quite right. It's not quite right. It's not quite hitting right. It doesn't sound like it's hitting the gong just right. I might take the gong right out of there. It might be loose, but it's just not quite hitting that right. It doesn't sound quite right. So I'm going to fix that. And there's two bolts. One here, one under here, and they got like a little horseshoe. that holds that clock motor in place. And then the top has a little ear that holds it. But the thing is loose, and you can't have it loose. If it's loose, things are going to go wrong. So we got to get that fixed. It doesn't have the original base plate. Somebody changed it. Somebody's also messed around with the door. They've scraped it. It used to have a scene inside there. Looks like there was a star in there at one time. You can barely see it. That's gone now. Someone messed around with that. The door's been repaired many times. We've had lots of repairs. This thing is old. This is 185 years old. Okay, so what the customer wants me to keep it mostly original, 100%. Try to fix what I can. Get this wood, something on this wood to get it softened up a bit. Get everything tight, check everything out, get everything loose. Get it running. Okay, another thing I find on these is the pendulum. Usually that people will bend that screw or bend this, and then when they bend it all up, it won't sit on there square. Okay, you want that perfectly square, level, square. All right, that's where the key goes. The key's right here. Where the key goes. So we're going to make sure I've already straightened this out. And I've already straightened out that arm that was bent, probably from somebody moving the clock with the pendulum on it. You always want to take that pendulum off before you move this clock or you'll damage it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to clean it. And like I say, this is 185 years old, and I'm going to get it running. And I'm going to get it running good. Another thing about these clocks, no matter where you set them, on the table, or you can hang it on the wall, they have to be perfectly level in 2 axes. Has to be level on the top, has to be level this way too. So you want that clock sitting on that wall level in both directions. You don't want it unlevel. That'll screw everything up on the clock. It has to be perfectly level. Once you get that perfectly level and dialed in and running, you'll be surprised how accurate this will keep time. Yeah, you'll have to move it once in a while. You'll have to bump it ahead a little bit, maybe once in a while. You want to make it so you got to bump it ahead, not behind. So you want it to run a hair slow. That way you can just move the needle a hair forward, because you don't want to go backwards. It's hard on the clock, and you probably loosen the hand up going backwards. So running it a hair slow, like a couple minutes slow every week, is perfect. And you can just bump it ahead every week, and it's right on the money. And you got to wind it every 24 hours. It says 30 hours, but I'd wind it every 24. And count the number of turns as you wind it with the key, because you don't want to hit the top on the inside and bottom it out. That's also hard on the clock. That'll loosen it, could damage it. So you want to count it. If it's like a half inch from the top and it takes 20 turns on one and 25 on the other, you want to do that at the same time every day. 20 turns, 25 turns, and you're done. Look inside, make sure it's not going to hit, and do that every day religiously at the same time, and this thing will run like a Swiss timepiece forever. It's amazing, because all these parts in this clock are basically handmade, So it's amazing something like this from 185 years can still be running, okay? It can still be fixed. So the E.N. Welch, 1840, 1850, and we're going to clean it, and we're going to check all those wheels. We're going to check everything, tighten the motor, get everything dialed in, and then we're going to do some woodwork, get it all cleaned up best we can, get some lemon oil on it, something to preserve it, maybe some foreign bees or some liquid gold, get this cleaned up, probably some liquid gold, get it cleaned up. The door latch don't work very good. I think that's probably got to be bent. It's not hitting right. Something ain't right with that. I got to fix that. But we're going to do it. So thanks again for watching Pine Tree State Restorations and the E.N. Welch Gravity Wind Up 185-year-old timepiece. We'll see you soon.